This Republican majority thinks that it works for President Trump, as opposed to being an independent branch of government that serves as a check on power. And so we see endless attempts to curry favor, to kiss up. And of course, the quintessence of that is the bill before us today.
The Gulf of America Act would rename the body of water formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. The Secretary of Interior, acting through the chairman of the U.S. Board of Geographic Names, would oversee the implementation of the renaming. On his first day back in office, President Trump signed Executive Order 14172 entitled Restoring Names That Honor American Greatness.
Stephen Colbert proposed this as a joke in 2010, and it's important to remember what was going on at the time, what led to the joke. There was a blown BP oil well that gushed oil for many, many weeks and months, killed 11 people, crushed the coastal economy of the Gulf, and Colbert used the name change as a gimmick to raise awareness of the disaster that dragged on for 5 months, something our Republican friends seem to have forgotten about as they advance their dirty drilling agenda. It is weirdly appropriate that they are taking what started out as a joke and actually moving it forward as part of their drill baby drill agenda. And unfortunately, that means the joke is on us.
Today, the Subcommittee on Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries will examine 4 bills that will foster good stewardship of taxpayer dollars, achieve better and more effective conservation outcomes, and provide necessary relief from predatory double-crested cormorants for aquacultural producers. Our first bill, sponsored by Congressman Arrington of Texas, would prevent the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service from implementing the Biden administration's land management plan for the Mule Shoe National Wildlife Refuge in West Texas and eastern New Mexico.
Before we hear a lot of overheated rhetoric about land grabs, let's set some facts here. Fish and Wildlife Service cannot seize land. It cannot pressure landowners. It may only acquire land, water, or other interests from willing sellers, full stop. There is no land grab. That's a fiction designed to stir outrage, not an honest reflection of reality. But here we are. My Republican colleagues have brought another bill rooted in the same old hollow narrative where every conservation effort is cast as a government overreach and a conspiracy where public lands are treated like some kind of a looming threat instead of an intergenerational legacy. And the truth is just different. Mule Shoe Land Protection Plan is a science-based voluntary initiative that offers landowners a new tool to manage their property while supporting conservation if they choose. It's the product of years of research, listening sessions, and direct engagement with the very people who live and work in the region. The plan doesn't restrict landowner rights, it expands them. It gives landowners a choice to conserve habitat for birds and wildlife, to be compensated for doing it, and to be part of something larger than their own fence lines. That is not a threat, it's a partnership. And it's exactly the kind of win-win conservation we should be lifting up, the kind that Republicans used to celebrate, and we shouldn't be tearing it down. Chair Westerman, would you accept allowing judicial review if the population drops below 20% in a year, perhaps? Would that be just, if the gentleman would let us know? I mean, we're looking for something here, some common ground to provide a backstop if this becomes law. Would you agree to that?
Well, I don't think it's my, it's not my legislation. And
would the
it's not my,
gentlelady agree to that? Just a little bit of a safety net here in case she's wrong about. It is my time, but I'm asking you yes or no. Would you accept a backstop of 20% decline in any year?
Well, didn't we just bring a wolf back that was here 10,000 years ago? So, I mean, if it really gets that bad, you know, we could just bring woolly mammoths back and all this stuff.
Oh, boy.
So.
Okay, well, that's a deeply unserious response to what should be a very serious
Look, we have worked on this time and time again, and rogue judges overturn the administration after administration's
understand, and reclaiming my time, because I did hear the gentlelady make that point. I don't see why there wouldn't be some level of a safety net that my friends across the aisle would agree to. That's all this amendment is trying to get at, and we can't even get a straight answer about whether 10, 20, 30% decline in any single year could at least trigger some kind of judicial review.
I will note that once again, the minority has chosen to ignore their own members' legislation, choosing instead to identify a witness to oppose a Republican bill rather than a witness to testify as to the value of the Democrat bill before us. This trend is not surprising. Less than half of the legislative hearings last Congress had a witness expressing support for a minority-sponsored bill. With that, I want to take the time to thank the witnesses for being here today, and I look forward to a robust conversation. I now recognize Ranking Member Huffman for his opening statement. Thank you.
Madam Chair. And Madam Chair, I think you know that Democrats would love to have an additional witness so that we could actually have our witnesses speak to both the bills we support and, unfortunately, the bills that we must oppose. But when we're limited to one witness, we're kind of stuck. And so I would love it if you would go back to the practice that I did when I chaired this committee, which was to reach out to the minority party and see if we could find some joint witnesses where you wouldn't have to be jammed into this Hobson's choice. But until then, I guess we will have snarky comments about, which witnesses the Democrats choose with their one lonely witness choice. And then I guess we will respond in kind by pointing out that the Republicans never want to call anyone from the administration to ever testify at their hearings, which is also a problem. But gosh, let's be better. Let's get beyond that kind of partisan stuff. Let's be clear. This isn't just about one refuge. The bill's part of a broader campaign by fringe organizations like American Stewards of Liberty, groups that specialize in fear-mongering, misinformation, and dismantling environmental protections under the guise of defending freedom. And I say to my colleagues and to the communities watching, don't fall for it. The National Wildlife Refuge System is the world's largest network of lands and waters dedicated to conserving wildlife. These refuges are not just lines on a map, they're vital sanctuaries for migratory birds, endangered species, entire ecosystems that sustain our air, water, and climate, and for millions of Americans, they're right next door. Our wildlife refuges are also economic engines. Refuges draw hunters, anglers, fishers, outdoor recreationalists, photographers, bird watchers, and tourists. They support local businesses, generate a lot of rural jobs, and increase county revenues. Many even incorporate agriculture because conservation and working lands don't have to be at odds. And that's why National Wildlife Refuges have long enjoyed bipartisan support. They're shaped by local voices, managed with state and community input, and built on a model of collaboration that works. Mule Shoe is no exception. There, landowners, hunters, conservationists, and residents have come together to protect a fragile and vital landscape. We're going to hear from one of those voices today, and we should be honoring that success, not politicizing and dismantling it. We should be expanding staffing and investing in the future of these places so that Americans, more Americans, can hunt, hike, farm, and enjoy them. So let's reject the fear-mongering and the politics. Let's stand with communities, and let's do our part to preserve our nation's special places for generations to come. I have to admit, when I saw my friend from Colorado's bill and I saw the title, the Pet and Livestock Protection Act, I got kind of excited because we really do need a bill to keep Kristi Noem away from dogs and goats. But then I read the bill, and I was disappointed to learn that the bill is just another attempt to substitute politics for science and undermine the Endangered Species Act, one of our country's most effective and popular conservation laws. Every time the Fish and Wildlife Service tries to delist gray wolves, they seem to screw it up. Why? Because they try to cut corners, and they get called out by the courts. Yet wolves have bounced back in some parts of the country thanks to ESA protection, but their recovery remains nascent, tenuous in places where they're just beginning to return, and non-existent in many suitable habitats across the vast majority of their historic range. So this doesn't mean we need gray wolves everywhere, but it is clear that the species is critical to balancing wild ecosystems in many parts of the country. And it's also clear, not to mention appropriate, that the ESA requires that they be protected when facing threats in any significant portion of their range. This is an important point that the Biden administration finally recognized last year when they began the process of developing a nationwide gray wolf recovery plan. And it was due to be published this December. If it is allowed to happen, as it should be, then this plan will recommend a forward path for ensuring stable populations of gray wolves in enough places to secure their long-term survival. Now, importantly, development of this plan will outline the conditions under which pressure can be taken off the states that currently host the vast majority of gray wolves. This is the path to recovery, targeted downlisting, and eventual delisting of wolves based on sound science. At the same time, the service is in the middle of conducting a national dialogue on gray wolves and working landscapes, and it's designed to inform decision-making once the recovery plan is completed. Importantly, this dialogue includes a broad cross-section of people and entities concerned about wolves, from landowners and livestock producers to states, localities, and tribes, and also conservationists and hunters. All of them should be at the table. The process is thoughtful, inclusive, science-driven, basically the polar opposite of what's going on with this bill before us today. This process should be allowed to play out, the inclusive, collaborative process that I'm talking about. Allow it to produce a new listing determination for gray wolves. That is the right way to do this. And my amendment would require that by striking the operative language of the bill and replacing it with a requirement that the service produce its nationwide recovery plan no later than December 31st of this year and publish a new draft status determination for gray wolves in the lower 48 no later than December 31st of next year, 2026. Let's allow science to be our guide and stop the fear-mongering. I urge adoption of this amendment and yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Boebert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also oppose this amendment. This really just undermines the bill once again, and it unnecessarily delays the implementation of this critical legislation. And as I've already said many times, the gray wolf is fully recovered. The science is there. It's been on the endangered species list for 58 years. It's been supported by President Obama to be removed. The Trump administration, the Biden administration, we have Democrat secretaries of Interior who were supportive of that, and now there are an estimated 6,000 wolves, gray wolves here. And this 2020 rule was proposed after scientists and nonpartisan career employees at the Department of Interior once again found that gray wolves were fully recovered and once again issued a rule that returned management of the gray wolf populations to the states and tribal wildlife agencies. We aren't saying get rid of all the wolves. We're saying return the management back to the local authorities. There's been litigation rather than science-based evidence that has held this rule up from being implemented for nearly 5 years now. And this frivolous lawsuit that was filed by Defenders of Wildlife and Wild Earth Guardians and other extremist groups were followed by this activist judge. He pandered to these leftist extremists by vacating the 2020 rule, unilaterally relisting the gray wolf by judicial fiat. The science is clear, the wolf is recovered, and I oppose this amendment.